I would like to remind everyone that this meeting is being recorded. If any member of the public would like to make an audio or video recording of this meeting, please notify me by raising your hand, either in person or remote, and I will notify the public per the Massachusetts public meeting laws. Do we have anyone who's making a recording tonight? Check our attendees. Seeing none. Mission and vision, go.
The Falmouth Public Schools creates world-class student learning experiences. Our Clippers are empowered to pursue their goals with curiosity, integrity, and resilience. And the vision, Clippers are creative, inquisitive, and engaged learners who participate in their community as socially responsible citizens. Clippers effectively communicate and solve problems that impact the world around them.
Thank you, Bo. And our fishbowl, Terry.
Okay, I have a comment from Olin, who goes to East Falmouth Schools in second grade. He answered the question, what would make your school life better? To hear more and hugging more. And I thought the different colors were, I think it looks good. Well, okay, this one's also from East Falmouth. That's just the way, this person's name is CJ. He's in first grade. And what would make life better was to have lunch and recess first.
Excellent. I agree, CJ. Thank you. Next, public comment. Members of the public are welcome to speak about items that are not on the agenda. Comment should be limited to 2 minutes in length. Due to the open meeting law, there will be no debate or action taken on public comment items. For items on the agenda, the chair may accept comments from the public following the committee's discussion of an item. Additional comments and feedback can also be submitted by email to schoolcommittee@falmouth.k12.ma.us. Do we have any public comment this evening?
Yes,
Terry, I'm sorry, could you state your name for the record?
Terry Alessandro. Do I just stand here?
You can come right to the table, please. Okay, and you have 2 minutes.
And I'll say I timed myself and it's over 2 minutes. So just letting when I have to click out, just let me know when I'm supposed to start.
I think we'll set. Now it's great.
Okay, I'm very disturbed in the way DEIB is being addressed in the school district. Black Americans live in an endless loop of injustice, and white Americans keep revisiting the same performance. A Broadway show that never closes goes on hiatus every now and then. You have had access to instruction about Black humanity, freedom, mobility, happiness, and health since we were brought here in chains. You have had your chance to say this repeatedly. When will you act? How long will you still be learning how to be allies, yet never making amends to us? I am tired of hearing, here we go again, when I speak of racial injustice. But some white folks in Falmouth are clearly not open to hearing about America's racial past or the stories developed over a lifetime of stories about my relatives who have never made it to their destination. The MLK beloved speech that was done by the DEI committee is not based or in any way reflects the way in which it was shared. A beloved community is where there is no space for injustice, prejudice, or discrimination. King said, we must all become outspoken champions. He warned that we are all complicit when we see injustices and do nothing about it. Racism did not end with the civil rights movement. Black and brown people have been protesting for centuries. It's white people who are responsible for what happens next. It is time to decenter yourself, your stories, and your experience, especially when talking about race and racial justice. This is not about you. It is about your friends, colleagues, and community. Even if this may be uncomfortable, we need to have these conversations. You are reinforcing the idea that Black people need to be saved by white people. The white savior trope is harmful. True allies do not seek to solve and save. Instead, we stand behind our Black friends and colleagues, build empathy, amplify their voice, and stand up alongside them. To say this is where things get real murderous, really tragic, really violent or aggressive, my white liberal educator friends already know what to do. They start a book club.
So Terry, that is time, but thank you very much for your comment.
Okay. I will leave the letter in full. Thank you.
Any other comments this evening? Could you come up and state your name for the record?
Hi, my name is Kayla Burridge. just speak?
Yes, please.
I just wanted to make a comment about a football game that I attended. It was October 27th, I believe, the date. And a student in the school, of Falmouth High School, was drunk and intoxicated and possibly on drugs. The vice principal of the school was coming to Snapchat asking for water and paper towels on 2 occasions. When she was asked which they needed it for, she said there was a person, not a child, drunk, that she was just trying to help clean up because they were throwing up all over the bleachers and themselves. A student then came to me, face almost in tears, and said that there's a girl that needs help. I walked over, I told her, "Are you guys calling the ambulance?" The vice principal stated, "No, I got it, we're all set." I then walked away, saw Charlie Markin, a police officer of Falmouth, standing on the corner of the bleachers. He then called the ambulance and the child was brought to Falmouth Hospital where she was heavily intoxicated and needed treatment. What's going on in our school systems is not appropriate. I have concerns from kindergarten where my daughter is, 8th grade where my son is, and the high school where I don't have a child at this moment. It's just my child plays for the Clippers and I was involved with the game. So I just need you guys to know what's going on in our schools.
And thank you so much. I know. Thank you. Appreciate it. Any other public comments? Next is student advisory. Anna.
Just
Yeah,
another-
yeah, please go ahead.
So thank you so much for having me. My name is Anna and I'm a junior at Falmouth High School. I'm a 2024 class representative. And I want to start off by thanking Dr. Dorr and Mrs. Thorold for coming to our most recent student government meeting. It was a great experience for all of us to hear from you, and I hope that it was a good experience for you guys to be able to listen to some student voices and see what we do at our level and how that relates. As far as an update, I just have a few quick things. First off, we are working right now, there's a collaboration of students and staff working with Dr. Harris towards a solution to what would be called like the bathroom problem at Falmouth High School, which is the pertains to the overuse of vaping in our school bathrooms, and students who are going to the bathroom, to use the bathroom, have a hard time accessing the bathrooms, and many students have a problem with this, and Dr. Harris and students and staff members are looking into solutions such as an increase in monitoring staff, as well as vape detectors in the bathrooms and education for students in our school and the younger schools, North Glen Lawrence, about vaping and about really how harmful that is. It's newer to the table, but we're working towards that. Also, Falmouth High School, we have Clipper Time, which has been around for a while, and it's a great academic opportunity for students to meet with teachers. I'm sure they're aware, but recently students and staff have been working towards having some more like lighthearted, like fun activities, which has really been great for like morale and like, we're working hard in school and just like are enjoying to have some time to decompress and interact with each other. It's been a great project that some staff have worked on. And then to wrap up, I just wanted to let you all know that the winter sports teams this week have had their first games, and auditions for the FHS Theater Company Spring Musical Mamma Mia was also this week, so that will be coming up in the spring. And finally, I'd just like to mention that our student government meetings are held on staff and service days in the mornings, and they're a great way to hear more student voices than just these little snippets of the student advisory board here. We have around 60 members across all 4 classes, and if anyone here would be interested in attending and hearing more from students, they can reach out to Mr. Feeney, who's the head of our student government at the high school, for more information, and we'd love to have you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Thank you,
Anna. Appreciate it. Okay, next we have a very special guest.
Natalie, can I? Sorry,
Voice. Go ahead.
that's
Andrew.
okay, thank you. I just wanted to comment to Anna. Thank you so much for taking the initiative and the lead to come to our meeting to provide that update. I know that vaping is an issue that we've discussed before as a board, and that people have a lot of concerns. So being able to hear directly from you about that is huge, and I applaud the initiative to start to try to deal with it already. And I also love the reverse invitation to come to more of your student government meetings. I feel like having students come to our meetings and us come to yours, that could lead to some very wonderful collaborations in the future. So thank you so much for that.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Anna. Yes, so next we have a very special guest presentation of citation by Senator Moran.
Thank you so much. I'm incredibly pleased to be here, especially amongst all of you. Again, it's been a while since I've been at this meeting, and I appreciate all that you do every day. It's huge, especially having a student report. That's just, you know, so and down to first grade. I mean, it's just really that communication is lifted so much every season. I'm very pleased to be here along with two members of the Board of Selectmen, as well as the head of Chamber of Commerce. This is indeed a very special day, and thank you to the superintendent for inviting Chief Dunn as well. So in the news, if you didn't experience it, you certainly read that there was an event in Falmouth which could have been dangerous. And the important thing to know is that there was a plan. And the plan had been practiced, reviewed, critiqued, and continuously perfected. And it actually was used when this emergency situation came about recently. I happened to have just read about it on the news and was actually with some friends, and the conversation was, wow, how worrying for parents, how worrying for kids, but it was so well taken care of. The community confidence was actually elevated with the experience that it was so professional. And certainly the fact that the police department had the road situation all covered, in addition to the fact that they were actually doing their job, trying to catch the dangerous criminals that were loose. And in fact, yesterday or this morning was reading, I believe the third one was apprehended. So that investigation, I understand, is progressing. And it really is just one example of things that happen every day behind the scenes, both in the police department as well as in the school system. The way that things are processed, there's communication, there are plans that are tried and perfected. And so the reason that I'm here today is that I called up Superintendent Dorr and said, this was an incredible feat. And the fact that if the community is calm and settled and feeling safe afterwards is, you know, you really don't hear a lot about it anymore. And I just think that, you know, when things go well and the plan really works, we have to take a moment and commend that. And really, you know, as I know, I'm sure all of the teachers just, you know, they had vests and kids and you know, administrators all knew what their job was, what they had to do, but it was a moving situation. There were things that could not have been anticipated, but this plan found a way to do it, and all of you did. And many more folks who are behind me and probably watching and will watch. So I had to come and bring a Commonwealth of Massachusetts State Senate official citation that states be it known, the Massachusetts Senate hereby extends its congratulations to Superintendent Dorr, the school system, in recognition of your guidance and leadership in managing the schools and safety of the students and staff at Moran Hall, Morris Pond, and Lawrence schools in Falmouth on November 17, 2022. And be it known that the Massachusetts Senate extends its best wishes for continued success, and that this citation is signed by the President of the Senate, the Clerk of the Senate, as well as myself. And just to, as a final point, that each and every person who's in charge here, whether it's the superintendent or the chief of police, it's that training and that team that comes together, and public safety, there's nowhere we need it more. And this was just one of those examples that it just was aced. And so on behalf of the community and on behalf of the state, I want to thank you. I'll come around and deliver. Thank you all, and thank you for this opportunity.
Okay, so I do want to say I humbly accept this on behalf of our entire administrative team, everyone that's sitting here, our principals, our staff, and we have a reunification team that we have practiced so many times. And as soon as we need to put things in place, everyone knows what to do. And that does go to the practice, and thank you for recognizing that. But this has been happening for many years, and we have a previous superintendent sitting right here. And I just, this has been a longstanding relationship with the Falmouth Police Department. I am so proud of the work that we do together, and I was so proud to be able to step in this district where those relationships have been valued and just cultivated over time. And so I am very lucky to be here. And thank you so much for the recognition on behalf of the Falmouth Public Schools.
And again, kudos to all of the staff who got together, and the bus drivers and the TAs and the teachers and the unification team. It really is a massive undertaking, and it's wonderful that it appears so smoothly, and it speaks to all of the training that occurred behind the scenes. So thank you so much for recognizing our district. Thank you, Sue. Okay, next is guest speaker Michael Kasparian, President and CEO of the Falmouth Chamber of Commerce. And just to offer context, and thank you for joining us, to offer context, as many of you read in the enterprise, Mr. Kasparian is proposing a bold idea related to affordable housing, and has specifically identified Lawrence School and the administration building property. And since we haven't had a conversation, I thought it was very important that Mr. Kasparian join us this evening and sort of share his idea and allow us an opportunity to ask any questions.
Great. Thank you
So
so
thank
much.
you.
Good evening. Thanks for having me. And I'm glad we have this opportunity to come together and speak. So, and I know I'm limited to 15 minutes. So there's a couple of things I'd like to talk about before we talk about that. I think specifically what I want to say is there isn't a specific proposal for that to happen right now. That article was the result of an over 1 hour interview with the Falmouth Enterprise talking about affordable housing, which is something that the Chamber has taken on as a mission. Came at the tail end of that as possible long-term solutions, but I'm going to come to that in a minute. For those of you who are not aware, the Falmouth Chamber of Commerce operates on a community model. So not just a business-focused chamber, or a community-focused chamber. And that is evident in the composition of our board of directors. So for those of you who are not aware, Falmouth Public Schools is represented on the board of directors. Falmouth Police on our board of directors. The nonprofit community, Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution, the scientific community, Cape Cod Healthcare, as well as the artistic community at all. So we're always looking at the entire community and what the chamber can do to support our almost 600 members. We've been strong supporters of Falmouth Public Schools. What we want is the best for our students and our teachers as well. The board of directors over the last 2 years has focused heavily on the affordable housing issue. And It's gotten to a point where it really is a crisis in town. And we talk a lot about the problem, but we feel as though it's time to start talking about specific solutions. What we started that interview with was talking about how Falmouth is really much better off than most of the other towns here on the Cape. There are a lot of things that have been put in place, and it's really obvious that both the select board and town meeting is supportive of housing. And that's evident in proposals that have come up, the accessory dwelling unit bylaw that was put into place. In fact, 2 town meetings ago, when the overlay district was laid out for Route 28, where businesses by right could add residential housing on top. And it was a win-win, not only for housing advocates, but also for environmentalists. Because at that time, Joe Netto, town meeting member, got up, made an amendment that he did not want to see that happen east of the certain part where the sewers are, which was a very good point, but it still went through. And so it was a win-win. The amendment passed, and so the housing advocates got that piece, and again, the environmentalists. What we spent a lot of time in that interview talking about was the fact that the environment is one of the factors that we have to take into consideration. It severely limits where housing can be built. Now, as a result, there are some really good projects going on right now. The Kimco project up at Staples is something that's proposed, it's happening. That could add up to 155 units. The old Royal Nursing Home, there's a project in place that could add up to 130 units there. And then the EDIC is proposing micro units, 60 to 80 units at the Falmouth station. So that, given that, is very hopeful to us. But of course, that's a process that takes place. The beauty of all those projects are they're either close to or already connected to the sewer. In the case of the Royal Building, it's an adaptive reuse of the property. The specific statistics that we're paying attention to, that I think everybody in town needs to, so we have 33,000 approximately residents who live here, 45% whom are seniors. By 2030, that number is going to remain around 33,000, but the number of seniors is going to be 65%. So I'm sure that's something that you all look at with enrollment in schools. The other factor that's probably the most important than anything is for any town or community to have equilibrium, which means that everybody who works in the town has the ability to live in that town. 30% of residential properties need to be long-term rentals. In Falmouth, that number is 6%. That's because people come in, they buy homes, they rent them out by the week, short-term rentals, and then the cost is just astronomical. We talk a lot about affordable housing, and I think that that's a term that is often misunderstood. For those of you who have not had an opportunity to look, on our website, there's a 3-part series that we did on the affordable housing issue. The first part, of which we're thankful that many of the stakeholders, including Dr. Talia, participated in, talked about how people are being impacted in our town right now. Not just the frontline workers in the service industry, teachers, police officers. The chief will tell you he doesn't have a full police department. DPW, as well as doctors, nurses, and the scientific community. There's more than 500 open positions right now for Cape Cod Healthcare, more than 120 open positions at the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution. So when we talk about affordable housing, it's really the middle. It's everybody. And that would include rentals as well as first-time home buyers, small houses, et cetera. And the issue we have is a zoning issue as well as an environmental issue. The way you get around that is through density. Now, the chamber, working with our members, wants to start the conversation about possible solutions long-term. And what we're looking for is, a 10-year, 20-year plan, something that once these other projects I just mentioned are completed, where do we go next? It's really important because of the wastewater situation to be in areas where sewering always exists. When we look at the Lawrence School, we look at the Lawrence School as the largest piece of contiguous property downtown. And we're saying at some point, does it make sense that a new junior high school building could be built from the proceeds of developing that land at the high school campus to give our teachers and our students a state-of-the-art facility comparable to the high school to be more efficient. And while we're at it, we talked about this building, not from the perspective of the administration, but from the town hall perspective. A building that is aging, a building that's in a flood zone, a building that could be readily used for more parking that is needed as well. So what we're proposing is for the town to have the conversation, for everyone to partner together and be part of the solution long-term, and think long-term about what we can do, what assets we already have that we can use. Now, that's clearly not something that's gonna happen overnight. That's not something that the chamber has the authority to do. I know that we have a select board that's eager to look at opportunities. What we wanted to do, and in that conversation I had with the enterprise, it was an invitation, in fact, to say, you know, the schools could actually be a part of the solution. It could be a benefit. It could be a win-win. When we talk about that school, we don't talk about putting high rises and stuff. The vision there that the board of directors thought of is it's a beautiful neighborhood there. Small houses on small lots. Why couldn't that whole area be redeveloped with smaller houses? If houses are affordable, we don't have to call it affordable housing. It can just be housing that people can afford. And I think that education is the key. Whenever you say affordable housing, people start thinking it's going to be government subsidized housing, and it kind of gets a bad rap. And yes, that is also necessary. You know, there's a lot of different things. So the other thing, if you take a look at that 3-part series on our website, we brought in the executive directors, Falmouth Housing Trust, Falmouth Housing Authority, Habitat, et cetera, that talk about the specific populations that they work with and the type of housing that they need. So we don't have all the answers, but what we're trying to do is move the conversation and be very proactive to get people in the community to understand that this is a problem we all have to work on. It's the town's responsibility to lead, but it's everybody else's responsibility to support the town, to engage in the conversation and to work together. Because otherwise we're going to be in a lot of trouble here. Businesses are going to fail. The biggest complaint we had this year at the Chamber of Commerce was nobody had enough people to maximize revenue. So you had businesses that had more business that they could handle that either didn't make a profit or made a minimal profit. And at what point, you know, do you stop, you know, operating your business because it's just not worth it? And that will affect the whole town. You know, our philosophy is very simple. What's good for the town is good for business, which is why we're so focused on trying to have this conversation.
Great, thank you.
Yeah.
Any questions from school committee, or questions or comments? Melissa?
Thank you for coming. I have just a couple of questions / comments. So first, I would just like to say, it's our job as a school committee to speak for the students and the staff in the buildings. And I take it personally as it's my charge to defend them. And in that, I hear what you're saying with we must have affordable housing and we have to look out for everyone. And but my position here on this board is to protect the buildings and to protect what we have for our students, because it's our job to educate them in a way that is good for them and to help make them successful people. I don't think that I don't think that the schools don't want to be a part of the solution. I think that that's definitely, we would definitely like to be part of the solution. I mean, we all live here, our community, we all, you know, people have heard me say it before, I consider Falmouth my family. But I also, I have to respectfully agree to disagree with this project. I'm a little concerned, you said that this was from a 1-hour conversation that you had with the enterprise. When was that conversation that you had with the enterprise? Because the article just came out.
It was a week before. So I was
Because-
invited by the enterprise to
Okay.
talk about affordable housing.
Because this idea was floated to the school committee, or at least to the superintendent, many weeks before. So this idea must have been chirping around somewhere.
Well, Melissa, the board of directors of the chamber's been talking about this idea for a couple of years now. And
Interesting.
respectfully, you're right. I mean, that's your job, but it's also our right to come up with ideas that we feel are creative and to bring them up and start the conversation.
Well,
So, and I'm not here to pitch any particular
no, of
thing,
course.
nor to have an argument with you
No,
about it.
absolutely not.
I'm here as a courtesy
Sure.
to explain to you the thinking of the board of directors of the Chamber of Commerce
Mhm.
and how it's within our right and our responsibility to our members in the entire community
Sure.
come up with creative solutions and talk about them.
Sure, I welcome the conversation. I just, to be courteous, if you've been talking about it for a couple of years, I wish that we were circled in a couple of years ago, but that's okay. You want what's best for our students and teachers, and so do we. So I would just like to say that I would like to defend specifically this building and grounds that we've just put a lot of equity into with the windows, with the renovation, with the new field. We did get a grant not long ago from the road race to help with the baseball field. So I feel like we're going the distance. Our long-term plan is to go the distance with the building. Chief, I have a question for you. Mr. Kasparian mentioned that there are open positions with the department, and I'm wondering if those open positions are because we can't find officers to live here in town.
Just can't find offices at this point.
Okay, thank you for that. Mr. Kasparian, you mentioned that Cape Cod Healthcare has open positions. I'm an employee of Cape Cod Healthcare. I've been there 20+ years at this point. I can honestly tell you from not just rumor, but from being actual boots on the ground, people don't want to work in healthcare anymore. I don't know that I don't want to disparage and say that it's not because medical professionals, I don't just want to limit it to doctors and nurses, because it takes a whole lot more than just those people to make a hospital go around. I don't want to say that housing is not an issue, but I don't want to say that that's the #1 issue. Does that make sense?
I based my comments from Michelle Scarbeck, who also participated, who, as you know,
Oh, great.
is
Sure.
Human Services.
Yes, yes.
Resources, Senior Vice President
Sure.
of Healthcare, who has made it clear to us they're having a difficult time hiring in Falmouth in particular, because not just frontline workers, but doctors as well cannot find places to live. So that's what I'm basing my comments on.
Okay. So, and then you did have, and here's my last question / comment. You mentioned something about putting smaller houses in. Does that mean that you're interested in tearing down Lawrence School and putting houses?
We're not
Is that what that
interested
means?
and we're interested in the conversation of how that property, which is the largest piece of contiguous property to downtown, could be better utilized and is at the highest and best use of that property going forward. So I don't know, I'm not a developer.
Do you have any developers on your board? Anyone that maybe had suggested?
We do. Tim Duffney from Duffney Builders, a builder who's on the board, but we have not gone. We don't have a specific proposal or plan. It's the conversation
Sure.
of looking at assets of the town. Now they may be better utilized and housing.
Great, so it's gonna be Andrea and then Bill, and then Terry and Leah. So Andrea.
Thank you, and thank you, Michael, for coming and sharing that with us tonight. I think you're bringing up something that's a very important discussion, and I completely agree that it is absolutely time that we need to be actually doing something about affordable housing instead of just bringing up that there is an issue. I also think that what you were suggesting with the demographic trends in terms of the percentage of our population that will be seniors and the trajectory of our student enrollment, I think that is also tied in to housing. If young families can't afford to live here, then we're also not going to have young students in our schools. So I do think that this is something that we need to be talking about comprehensively, as you suggest. I think the one thing, and I know that this is just the beginning of a discussion, and so nothing has been outlined in terms of how this process would even look. But what I would really like to do is make sure that we're looking at things comprehensively instead of piecemeal. So, you know, the 2 parcels that you have suggested might be the best places to start, that might in the end be exactly the best way to proceed. But we might want to look at all of our schools together, do this as a more holistic approach to decide if we were going to do something new, how would it look, instead of just saying, we're going to take this one parcel and then have to create a new school. I think we should do it more comprehensively and look at the whole picture together.
Thank you, Bill.
Yeah, I would just like to, first of all, thank you for coming here and having this dialogue with us. And I think that's important. And you know, we've already heard the dialogue is important, the openness, the transparency about it is important. We have certainly talked in here about declining numbers and having to look at, you know, where, you know, are we allocating our schools in the best possible way based on where people are living, how the demographics have changed. I know we have talked about it in here about how it is hard to find teachers because of the expense to live on the Cape. I know that has come up, so it is definitely an issue. And I don't think we can deny that. That wasn't one of the examples you brought up, but I know it's one of the examples that we've talked about here in the past. So we certainly have a problem with housing in Falmouth, and we certainly need to be looking at all sorts of ways, including ways that may be outside of the box to some people, to have that kind of dialogue. But it certainly needs to be just open and transparent, and all the stakeholders need to be involved. Falmouth is one of those communities where our schools and our town are all tied in. It's not a separate district, and then the city government's over here. And, you know, great schools make a great community. And, you know, our schools, some of them are older buildings. They're going to need to be either remodeled or replaced down the road. And I think what I'm hearing from you is you're looking at a much longer term solution. You're not talking about closing Lawrence down next week and starting to clear ground.
We're not talking, I mean, specifically, what we're talking about is we have these other great projects that are going on right now, which could take a year or two to go into place. Long-term, what is a long-term solution? Is that 10 years? Is it 15 years? I don't know. And you're right, it's going to be comprehensive, and it's going to be everybody involved. We're trying to start the conversation, which obviously we've done here. You know, whether you're for or whatever, we're not specifically saying this particular project has to happen right now. But what we think it's time for is to stop talking about the problem and start talking about some of the solutions. So you're absolutely right. We don't have a plan for any specific building. We just look at we highlighted these buildings only because of this particular building, in our opinion, because it's in the geographic center of town. Is this the highest and best use for this particular organization? And again, you know, to the point, going back to what Ms. Keith there said about the students, you know, our opinion, and we could be wrong, is that if you had an opportunity to be part of the solution and provide your teachers and students with a brand new building at a different location, which would be a win-win, why wouldn't you at least think about it? I don't know. And that's a conversation that has to include the select board and everyone else. It's not just, it's, you know, again, the chamber doesn't have any teeth there, but we're going to be talking about it. And because our members are talking to us about it, it's our responsibility to really get out there in the community and float ideas.
Right. It doesn't hurt to have the conversation. I just want for anybody watching this later to understand that if their child is going to Lawrence School next year,
Well,
they don't need to worry about Lawrence School being
I can't imagine
torn down
anything
and,
being done in,
you know, sharing space with Morse Hall or Morse Pond in the next month. So I just want to make sure that was clear. Thank you.
Terry.
I think we need to look at both of the groups involved in this equation. The people who need housing, which is a definite need. And again, along with Melissa's feeling is the kids. First of all, who's going to pay for a state-of-the-art new school building for, Moran School has a pretty sizable population. So, I mean, it has to be a big enough, where are the taxpayers going to have to pay that? I mean, so I think, and what Andrea alluded to, it's a big lot of things to look at. And I just want to make sure, another thing that Bill said, so we're taking parts of all of us said tonight, but what brings to the community are good schools too. And we want to keep good schools, and we have good schools now. So before we shuffle things around, just talk more, which is why you're here.
and those are great questions. You know, how do you pay for something like that? I don't know. Could it be from development costs? I don't know. But again, it's starting the conversation.
Leah.
Hi.
Thank you for coming today
You're welcome.
and starting this conversation. So just kind of thinking big picture here, it's about shifting the trajectory. So instead of going to that 65%, that we would be able to have a younger community also represented who can keep these businesses going and have kids in school and things like that. Is that correct? Kind of. So it's about looking like this is where we're going. This is the trajectory. How can we shift that
Absolutely.
to start being
How do we keep
more
younger
of a
people,
diverse
how do we keep younger people and families here or create an environment they can move here?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I think this is, this is great that we're starting to have this dialogue. I want to bring up that we really need lots of representation within this process, right? And make sure that there are diverse voices being heard. I know there was like a Cape and Islands young adult group.
Cape Cod Young
Young
Professionals.
professionals.
Yes.
I just feel like we need to hear from these next generations to understand what it is that they need within a town and a community to be able to do this well. Because, I mean, I see our slightly declining enrollment every year. I love Falmouth. This is a wonderful town to raise families in. I want to know why people are choosing not to do that. And, the only way we can do this well, it's not just building houses, because if we don't have the people who are going to actually come here and live here and be our police people, police men and women, or be our teachers, it's not going to work, right? So it just has to be, we really have to be inclusive of the whole picture in this. And, it starts with maybe a little disagreement of where this might be, but it starts the conversation, right? And just making sure, I guess my thoughts are just having good representation within this discussion. Because there are many people who need to be part of this conversation. And it's not us, just us who needs to.
Absolutely. Again, it's the responsibility, it's the town. The chamber doesn't have the ability, but the chamber wants to support and be a part of the solution, just as with schools, all the stakeholders, healthcare industry, healthcare, the scientific community, all of them, because we hear from them all the time. I can't tell you how many phone calls we get on a weekly basis. People look, I just lost my rental. They decide to sell the house. Where am I going to go? Where am I going to live? And, we hear this over and over again. We hear this from all the employers. We can't hire anybody. Certain person's working for us has been with us so long, they're leaving Falmouth because they can't afford to live here. They can't find a place to rent, never mind to buy. So it's not just building houses for people to buy, it's also increasing rental. Long-term rental, that's the problem. 50% of the homes are second homes. A lot of them just sit empty all winter long. And the ones that are rented for, $3,000, $5,000 a week rather than, and so people can make their money in those 10 weeks. So it's a huge challenge and a huge problem. And you're right, it's going to take the entire community to solve it. And we're not saying we have all the answers, but we're throwing some ideas out there. We sit around our board of directors and we have these conversations. A board of directors that we feel is very well represents the entire community. And these are some of the ideas they came up with. I'm glad to share them with you. And we're not here to push any agenda, but we do want to talk.
I have one more thing. Yeah, I just want to acknowledge that our boards and our people who are making decisions don't represent our community all the time. So we do need to make sure we're going out there and hearing from people that might not be at the table and really making sure they're getting there.
Absolutely, that's great. Get the whole community involved. We just want to get it moving forward. We want the conversation going. This is great. We had a great conversation and hopefully it's going to continue forward.
Okay, a few more questions here. Kelly, you're next.
Just a quick question. First, thank you for, stirring the pot up and getting us talking about this. I appreciate it because someone has to, sometimes has to take the lead in that. So I don't know if you would even know this, but do you happen to know what percent? I mean, we have a lot of housing. We just don't have housing people can afford.
Right.
And I appreciate your comment about, the concept of affordable housing because it's inaccurate in the community that we live in. No one can come back here and afford a house after growing up and going through Falmouth Public Schools. That's not what people traditionally think of as affordable housing. So I appreciate that comment, but do you happen to know how many of the houses are second homes that are in that rental market, that short-term rental market? Like what I'm wondering is, how many homes do we have that are in that short-term instead of the long-term rental?
I don't have that specific. I know about 50% of the homes are second homes, and not primary residence, but I don't know. I know there's been an increase in companies as well as individuals who bought a lot of houses in the last go around, businesses that came in and really started doing Airbnb and Verbo type of rentals. So I don't know the exact number.
Yeah, I just thought you might know off the top of your head. I appreciate that I put you on the spot, sorry. But
Thanks.
I just think it's an interesting thing to consider, that it's not that we don't have enough houses. We just don't have enough houses that people can afford to live in.
Right, so and then that's the other part of the conversation too. And again, can the incentives be put in place? So it's a much broader conversation than just the two buildings that the enterprise decided to focus on in this article.
Agreed. Yeah. All right. Thank you.
Margaret.
Yeah, thank you, Michael, for coming. And we've had conversations about affordable housing, and I absolutely agree with it. One of the things, and I think it's sort of building off of what Kelly said, I'd be very interested in knowing about all of the buildings that are going on now and what is called affordable. If you're going to build a new building and you're supposed to have affordable housing and $500,000 is what it's going to cost, that's not affordable. And I've brought to your attention, Habitat for Humanity was supposed to build more houses, and they were limited. 4 houses that they could have built were taken down. So I think there's a larger issue, and I certainly think it's important for the school, the superintendent, to do an analysis of what we're doing and how the schools are being used. But I think it's important to know when people are building and they say they have affordable housing, what is affordable housing? $350,000, $500,000 is not affordable for perhaps teachers, police department, nurses, etc. Thank you.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions from the school committee? I saw 2 interested hands in the audience. Are there any questions or comments from public comments? I need you to state your name for the record.
I'm Tina Mapp. I appreciate the discussion. As a family member with young kids who is searching for a home in the community, I really appreciate it. And I'm thinking perhaps in the future, maybe one of the schools can operate on a K-12 model. This is definitely a courageous conversation, and we should not be willing to protect buildings over people. The same students we're seeking to protect face housing insecurity, my children included. Many of you may have purchased your homes years ago. The average going rent here is $2,600 a month, and that is cheap. Rental ends in June, and for the month of June, my family specifically, we're paying summer rental prices just so that we can complete our work year. So what we do is we live here during the year, and then we go down south and come back up to start the year. We literally move in our rental after school started for our children. So with the increasing cost of fuel, food, and other things in the community, I agree with Mike wholeheartedly. We need a plan. And finally, housing programs, because that's something that we're seeking to do, and that the district itself does promote housing programs, and it lets employees and people in the community know when there are things that are coming up for sale, especially with affordable housing. Even with 100% AMI, families who have 2 working parents, they don't qualify. So you almost have to be, I can give you the numbers, but you have to be penniless to be able to get in that program. You certainly wouldn't be able to live in Falmouth and have 2 working parents and get into some of the affordable housing. So thank you for approaching the conversation.
Thank you. And I think Nancy did your, okay, Terry, go.
Yes, Terry Alexander. I think when you look at this proposal, the instead of looking at the glasses half empty, you should look at it being half full.
Terry, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can you come closer because the audience can't hear you at home?
Instead of thinking that this is a half empty glass, I think we should look at it as a half full. When March 2020 happened, nobody thought that we were going to be able to do what was done. They didn't think financially, they didn't think health-wise, that we were going to be able to handle the pandemic. We did it in 60 days. Our entire country was on remote. And we're still doing it now. And, you know, personally from families that I've talked to, they want to stay in Falmouth. They've been here generationally, but they can't afford to live here. And the fact that someone said there's a lot of houses here, there's a lot of houses here, but they're not year-round rentals. And I know families that work here on the Cape and are buying houses in New Bedford because they can't afford to live here. So if anybody thinks that rent, any house that's available is, the rent is affordable, it's ridiculous, because you're talking about one rental goes up, you got 50 to 100 applicants for that one place. And if we want to have teachers and policemen and everybody contributing to our businesses in Falmouth, then we need to do something about the housing, because people want to have their kids in this safe town. I know that I do. I grew up here, but it's very hard if there's nothing that you can afford and there's nothing there that's being afforded to you. A 3-bedroom house right now cheaply is $599. With 20% down, that's $4,200 a month as of today. So I think, and I'm going to give a little bit of pushback, I think part of the problem is people that don't see this as a problem are people that already own a home. Thank you.
And Nancy, if you can come closer to these are our speakers and.
Sure,
Okay.
I'd be happy to.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, members of the school committee, thank you for this opportunity to address you this evening. I speak to you tonight as a private tax-paying citizen, a former superintendent, and someone who recently just served the district as a substitute adjustment counselor at the Lawrence School just this past fall. During my first month as superintendent back in 2015, Mr. Kasparian called me and asked me what my plan was for the Lawrence School. At that time, he was proposing to take over the property to build a multi-level parking garage to service Main Street businesses. My response was that the Lawrence School would remain a junior high school and continue to serve students in Falmouth. I assured Mr. Kasparian that the demolition of the Lawrence School would not happen on my watch. Currently, Mr. Kasparian is quoted in the Enterprise as proposing for the town to build a state-of-the-art junior high school on the Falmouth High School campus because the Lawrence School is beyond its prime. And the use of the Lawrence School property needs to go to affordable housing. I'm keenly aware of the affordable housing crisis in Falmouth and the work of 3 entities, the Falmouth Housing Corp., the Falmouth Housing Trust, and the Falmouth Housing Authority, who are addressing this crisis. Repurposing the Lawrence School building and its property is not the answer. The town of Falmouth has many big ticket items in its capital plan, and building a new school does not make sense. Framingham recently built a new middle school costing $98 million. Having just recently worked at the Lawrence School, I can assure you all, including Mr. Kasparian, that the building is not beyond its prime. I would remind Mr. Kasparian of the extensive renovation and addition to the building in the 1990s, and the fact that the town of Falmouth invested $3 million in brand new windows in the very recent past. In closing, I asked the school committee and Dr. Doerr to take a strong stance against Mr. Kasparian's suggestion. I urge this board not to allow the Lawrence School building and its property to be removed from your purview and governance. Thank you.
Great, thank you very much. Great, so again, I appreciate your joining us. We definitely keep the conversation going. I think I can speak for all of us. We recognize that affordable housing is an issue in this town. I grew up here. My friends can't afford to live here. But I don't know if those 2 buildings are the best route to take. But thank you, and we'll keep the conversation going.
Absolutely, as will we.
Yes, that's
Thank you
good.
very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Next on the agenda is presentation of Special Education Parent Advisory Council, also known as CPAC. And Terry, if you can, please join us at the table. Thank you. And school committee members, we have a copy of Terry's presentation in our packet.
I have my laptop as well.
Is there a way to say it again?
You'd have to get the laptop. in the room.
Oh, I'm sorry. We'll follow along with you.
Okay. My name is Terry Alessandro. I am the chair of the CPAC, which is Special Education Parents Advisory Council. I want to make it clear that it's our job as parents and educators is to prepare children to live and prosper in the world they will inherit and inhabit. A challenging world in the best of times. We live in a moment of intense social evolution, and our day-to-day lives are being expressed by extreme disunity and inequity, threatening the safety and development of all children. Special education's core is the belief that our children are included and protected. However, when an IEP, which is an individual education plan, however, I refer to an IEP as I expect progress. When an IEP is non-compliant, that signals that where there is smoke, there is fire. As the chair of the CPAC, I request that the school committee expeditiously initiate and audit all IEPs for non-compliance. The reason I make this request is I'm going to share a story that not only was illegal, non-compliant, it was inhumane.
So I just want to hold you there. We cannot discuss a particular case or a student.
I'm not gonna say anybody's
Just
name.
sort of like
Yeah.
high level and no details, because I don't want the child to be able to be picked out. So,
Okay,
yeah.
so this child has specific medical need in their IEP. It was not given. And we're talking intermittently over months. Now, when you do not provide a child that is medically assisted in their IEP, and they're staying at home because they're homebound, by law, you have to give them education at home. That's what FAPE is, free, appropriate public education. So when this parent came to me, and the response that I got from the district, they put so to the parent, well, we didn't realize this was a problem until Terry sent an email. Now, that is equivalent to me going to any bar downtown, drinking everybody under the table, getting on the road and driving. And not until I get stopped by a police officer would I say, oh, I didn't know drinking and driving was a problem. When this district says they did not see that as a problem, that is inhumane. This parent almost lost their job. So I think at this time, especially with the ESSER funds before they're all on, that we make sure that the children in school right now are benefiting from those funds. Because quite frankly, as they get to be adults, they're the ones that are going to be paying this money back. We cannot have a beloved community if children, especially in education, are unloved. And that has been my experience dealing with special education in this district. And I have dealt with many other school districts. Why this isn't working, there seems to be a substantial gap between official policy and implementation. Limitations through the school's lack of resources such as reading coaches, behavior specialists, social workers, attendance officers, etc. And parents often resent what they perceive as condescension from their child's IEP team. And where that comes from is when a parent who, let's say, isn't as educated as those sitting around that parent's table. And they go, oh, you know what, the school's gonna do the best because I don't know any better, or maybe I didn't graduate from high school. And the thing that I tell parents, and the thing that this district needs to stand behind, is that when I am sitting in an IEP meeting for my child, I don't care if you have a master's or a doctorate. When it comes to my son, I have the PhD. And that is any parent that has an IEP. However, that is not being done. And how this can be without such a financial burden is that if this district took those funds and initiated structured literacy across the board, which is multisensory reading, which is what they usually give to children who have dyslexia. But if we gave that to everybody, you wouldn't have pullouts. You wouldn't have children being ostracized because they are being pulled out. Everybody would learn to read. You have peer-to-peer interaction where they'd be helping each other. Each child will be in the least restrictive environment that they legally belong in. Then we will be working as a community instead of a committee. The other problem that I seriously have is the Mass Health Waiver Program. If you have Mass Health as a primary or secondary, and I want to make it clear to people that think if somebody has Mass Health, that they are poor or not or uneducated. I want to make it clear that a lot of families have Mass Health as a secondary simply because the co-pays that they pay on a weekly basis for their child are more than what they pay for that additional insurance. It has nothing to do with the family's work, but unfortunately that disparity exists. So this Mass Health waiver, you can sign it so the school can then bill Mass Health for the special education services, and then the money comes to the town, and the town gives it to the school. The problem with this is, if I am going to sign that form, because I'm, you know what, I'm paying insurance, I might as well help the district out, because after all, it's going to come back into special education. No, this money goes back into the general education fund, shorting special education twice. And I want to remind everybody that IEP is a legally binding contract. If you don't follow it or how it is written, it's the same as any other contract that you have. And there are legal consequences to that. Now, since COVID, we've had this whole thing about compensatory services. And I think one of the big issues that started is because when Secretary DeVos was Secretary of Education, she left everybody on the hook about if she was going to give away with the special education. She waited till the last day, didn't do it. Left every district scrambling on how they were going to make up this time. Well, we are now 2 years in, actually 2.5 years in. We are giving students compensatory services for compensatory services. That's ridiculous. That's impractical because we are now telling students that they are getting things now that they should have had 6 months ago. So it might not even be applicable right now because they're not getting what they should have gotten initially. And the fact that if we don't have the personnel, if we don't have the personnel to give those special education services and supports, okay, you have to let the parents know. You don't, it's a violation too. But if we can't find the personnel, which everybody knows we're having a hard time filling jobs, then you know what? Turn to the parents, give the parents a stipend so their child can get it on their time. That way you don't have to worry about it and you're in compliance. Not only that, instead of taking the kid out once a day, you're taking them out 2 or 3 times a day. What kind of emotional and mental health trauma does that put on a child? Tremendous. There are no do-overs. Evidence-based versus research-based. This I find, I don't even know the right word to use here. Per DESE, per the Student Succeeds Act, per IDA, the Individuals Disability Education, evidence-based is what we are supposed to be giving our children, not research-based. Research-based would be if they told you during the COVID vaccine, get this shot, we think it'll work. Evidence-based is doing human trials, making sure it works, have the science behind it. Our children are not lab rats. They deserve evidence-based problem. And one of the issues I have with the school committee is that the high school teacher, the high school principal that we found at high, he's part of Imago, which is a trauma-informed SEL. That is virtual, number one, and number two, that is research-based. Martin teacher, research-based. And these are things that this committee approves. Children seldom catch up to their grade level peers who may have kept in special education setting. Now, I know the literacy mandate is not until July of next year. However, regardless of what you're going to do in the future, regardless of what is in the works, what is that doing for children right now? For too long, dyslexia was not taken care of until it was in the 4th grade. We should be starting in kindergarten, and again, structured literacy across the board. It saves us money, it makes so all our children can read, and it gives our teachers the tools they need in order to run their class. And I had all the other, and as somebody that's dealt with different school districts, I have never had such a difficult time communication with school committee or with special education. When we came back from the pandemic, I wrote to this school to tell them about programs that were thousands of dollars that were free. The Think Kids program from Mass General offered to come in here, and it's behavioral. It's dealing with the behaviors. It's not a child's lack of will, it's a lack of skill. They were going to come here and especially address the suspension problem by race, but it was to deal with all children. And when educators take this class, they have a 73% decrease in behavioral problems. And you know what was done? Nothing. The film Resilience, I have tried several times to get that shown at this school. It talks about trauma for children. It reinforces the knowledge that parents need to know about ACEs, advanced childhood experiences. So I don't know what else to do. I'm sure, you get sick of all my emails, and frankly, I get sick of writing them. But we need to audit all the IEPs before it's next time COVID's done, we got no money. I'd like to hear from this committee a clear, concise, and specific timeline on how you intend to support special education. With exact dates, what do you think will be done by the end of this school year? What are the levels that you're going to try to hit? Who will be involved? Instead of just, we're thinking about it and it gets passed on to a new meeting. Clear, specific, just like any project that you create. You have timelines, you have people that are responsible for it. If you can't meet it, you come, I didn't meet it, but these are the problems, and this is what I'm doing. I have never seen a special education in a district that's not supportive. I mean, parents are allowed to get parental training for the special needs of their child. That's the law. No parents are being allowed to be offered parental training. Parental training is there's a conference in Boston for kids with autism, blah, 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 blah. I have seen districts not only pay for the hotel, pay for the class, because that helps the parent and the teacher to be a good team.
Okay, I'm gonna pause you there and thank you very much for sharing the presentation. Are there any questions from school committee for Ms. House Hunter? Okay, Leanne.
Well, it's kind of a question and comments, I guess. Because I think, and this is me coming from also being a school administrator, so there's a lot of things that I know around how special education programs work that as a school administrator, that I might not know as a school committee member, but I wear that hat too. So I think, you know, some of the things that you bring up that you're concerned around, like audits and ensuring IEPs are followed. I feel like we have really strict ways within our Department of Elementary and Secondary Education and under Joan to audit constantly our special education program. And as a school committee member at that higher level, we get privy to the information around, you know, where we have successes and where we need to work. But it's not in our privy to tell you how to do that. It's for us to hear about and then ask questions. So, you know, I appreciate you coming to us and sharing this information, but I just want to explain a little bit about like that we don't necessarily, we can't get into all of those details. That's not our role, though it's our role to ask questions and to learn from parents and community members about this. But I think that I'm just feeling like maybe something that I take away from this as a school committee member is that maybe we need to do this a little bit better of explaining how this works within our system. So we have more confidence from parents and community members who might be concerned about this. And people understand like what are the checks and balances that go on, but also who to communicate with when you have a concern. Because though it seems like maybe we know all this stuff, we don't know a lot of it. And so we're learning in the process too, as people telling us and explaining things to us. And you know, you talked about the parent training, and I do believe that is required also. So I guess I'm looking at you, Joan. So I guess my question is more for Joan around parent training. Could you just talk a little bit about what parent training has gone on?
Sure.
Okay.
So I have to say, I'm not quite sure in regards to the district funding and sending parents out to workshops and things such as that, but our requirement to ensure that we're working in and we offer, you know, every school district, we do have to have a special ed parent advisory, which is an advisory report to our school committee, and through that we offer workshops that are mandatory trainings that especially understanding the basics of IEPs that we work with the SEPAC, which Terry and I work together, and that has been scheduled and we offer that. So we have those workshops. We also have additional trainings, parent trainings throughout the district for special education, for social emotional, for other types of activities there. One of the required trainings, like I said, from the Department of Education and the Federation for Children with Special Needs is the basic rights workshop, which is understanding that. So there is the obligation for that. In regards to auditing and the compliance, the Department of Education mandates that happens. They do that as the governing board of the Department of Education. I believe it was just last school committee that, or the meeting before, which I shared out a little bit, what's called the tiered focus monitoring. That actually is the audit. It used to be called the coordinated program review, which is a 6-year cycle. It's been kind of revised to be called the tiered focus monitoring, part Group A and Group B. So we're currently in Group B. We're just starting with the self-assessment, and that is the actual file review. It's all the compliance of the IEPs from every procedural component from the initial request for testing through child find, all the way through reevals, through the development of the IEP. So all of the procedures and service delivery there. some of the pieces in regards to the service delivery, in regards to whether it be, we are bound by federal law under the Americans with Disability Education Act for the least restricted environment to ensure that we're providing our special education services in the least restricted environment for that individual student. All decisions made about the IEP happen through a team process in which the parents and guardians are a required member of the team. So those decisions are based off of the evaluation data, classroom performance, input from parents, guardians, all of the members of the team. And once a child in Massachusetts turns 14, they're invited to the IEP. And it's important to have their voice as well. No services are allowed to be delivered until there is parental acceptance, that the district proposes what the service delivery would look like and in what environment they're being provided. And upon parental or parent and guardian consent and acceptance, then we deliver the services. No service can be delivered without parent or guardian consent, and no changes are made until we hit that annual IEP or an amendment. So if there is any question and concern about what type of what type of service is being provided, whether it's a pull-out or an inclusion service, I would request that parents certainly bring up their concerns with the special ed building administrator in each building and with me. And then if at any point, if it becomes to a point where, there may not be consensus or the same perspective, each party is entitled to, it's called due process, and it's through the Bureau of Special Appeals. So there are certainly avenues to which people can. I would always encourage that families work with their team and with the district first to see if we can get some level of resolution. But that would be the process, and through that, that's another checks and balance of compliance and auditing. Did that answer your question?
Yes,
Okay.
it did. I just want to end my comments with, I really appreciate you coming, Terry, because I don't remember ever having a CPAC representative come to the school committee. Is that?
It was scheduled, I believe, in the spring, but something occurred. I think you were in.
I was to Terry, I think what Lee's saying is that even prior to Terry being on it.
Yes.
I don't think we've had anyone.
In all of my years on school committee, I don't think I've ever had someone hasn't come. So I really appreciate you coming, and I'd love to continue this communication. I just wanted to end with that. I appreciate it.
So we have Bill, Mike, and then
Yeah,
Terry.
I'd like to respond to her, but just an FYI, the school districts that I have worked with, I have always had a meeting with them every month, including superintendent on a monthly basis. And all hires that were done, always included the CPAC.
So we're gonna move to Bill's question.
Thank you. Ms. Alexander, thank you for being here tonight. I've got kind of a mouthful to say, so it's gonna kind of go up and down, so I'm asking you to just bear with me. I absolutely admire your passion, and I have since the very first day that I was on this committee and started seeing the emails that come through. There is no doubt in my mind that you are passionate and you care about the children that you are trying to look out for. And I appreciate that. And that is the very reason that I ran for committee, school committee, is to look out for every child in this district, regardless of who they are, what they look like, or anything else. You and I have never met or had a discussion, so I'm glad we could have this conversation right now. You don't really know me, and I don't know you that well. So there are times where I have read some of those emails and I felt like, wow, I'm being held to the fire, and I wasn't even part of the group at the time. So I do ask you to just try to keep that in mind when you are conversing with us, that you brought up something earlier, that's something that was voted for a couple years ago. And at least a few of us on the committee weren't even here for that. So please do give us the chance to hear you converse with us. I will appreciate that. But moving forward, I want to point out a couple of things that you said that really struck me, and I want to make sure that everybody hears these comments that you made. You said parents often resent that what they perceive as condescension from their child's IEP, and that some parents aren't necessarily as educated. They don't have as many degrees that the teachers do. You know, and I want every educator out there and every administrator to hear this, that regardless of the level of education of a parent, because I know there have been parents with advanced degrees who have been spoken to in a condescending way when asking questions about their child's IEP. And I want every educator and every administrator to hear, while you're here with us, that no question about your child is over the top. And a parent has every right to question an educator as to whether or not their child's IEP is being followed. And I want everyone to hear that. Because as you said, and I love this line, when it comes to your child, every parent has a PhD that no educator can match. Absolutely not. And no parent in the Falmouth community should be willing to go to a private school that doesn't even have to follow an IEP and gamble tens of thousands of dollars a year because they perceive that their child's IEP was not being followed. That is not right, and that needs to be fixed. So I appreciate you coming and bringing this to light. I can assure you that we've met now. I can assure you that I, with you, am looking out for those kids who are on those IEPs. And I'm not going to stop until we make sure that all of our systems and our processes are in place and everybody understands the importance of following these things to the T so that our children get the right education. So thank you for coming here. And I hope that we can continue to find some common ground.
No, I appreciate it, thank you. And just to let you know that also, it can be a racial issue. I've gone to IEP meetings with cornrows. But like, you understand federal IDA?
So Mike, your hand is up. You're next.
Thank you, Natalie, and thank you, Terry, for coming in. We've had the privilege to talk over the phone in the past, and I'm glad to see you virtually. I want to point out a couple of things that you said kind of in the middle of your presentation about the compensatory services on compensatory services and how that does affect our students with the pullout process, and also the communication, which I've heard from numerous parents that the communication in the most recent month has not been ideal, and taking away the parents' voice to do what's right for their kids, what's best for their kids, is something that I've heard also. Where, and I will echo what Bill said. I've known parents who have good degrees, hardworking, all ends of the spectrum. They all deserve the same respect and not to be spoken down to. And from what people have told me from my conversations with Terry and others, this is happening. So that I would like, I don't know if an audit whatnot, but I'm very interested in the number of parents who are leaving the school based on IEPs not being filled and going to private schools, because that's a real concern, I think, and that we shouldn't be having that happen here in Falmouth. So thank you again, Terry.
So just an FYI, I have been in contact with Desi, and I don't want to go down this road because Falmouth is my community. And, I've been raving at meetings with Desi about the racial trauma training going on, but I cannot, in good conscience, give a positive comment about special education. So if we cannot come to a place where we are going to protect these children, I am not going to be complicit, and I will file a class action complaint with the parents that I've spoken with that don't have IEPs that are in compliance.
Well, thank you, Terry.
I'm sorry. It's for Joan, but Bill had brought up what I forgot to say, and what I really wanted to say was around the parent, just the parent piece, the parent side of the IEP meeting, and how a parent feels in that meeting, and to make that meeting a better environment, a more supportive environment for the parent in this process. And I was just wondering, Joan, around what kind of trainings teachers get, or the, what do they call the people who run the meetings and the SEPA.
SEBAs, our special ed building
The
administrators.
What kind of training do they get in how to ensure compassion and understanding and support to parents in that process? And is there something that we could be doing better and working on around these?
So our special ed building administrators, just take all our professional development, they attend weekly workshops, we attend as a department to ensure that they're most up to date on all processes and procedures. They're provided with all the special education technical advisors that the department has to ensure that we're staying updated and current in regards to special education and the interactions and with the parents. That is certainly an expectation, and we do a lot of work about that. We do case consults, but all confidential, but to ensure that we are being mindful of all voices at the table. And I just want to say, as the Director of Student Services, if there is ever a situation in a parent, school committee member, Ms. Alves, if anyone feels that there's anyone being spoken down to, condescended, or that there is any type of disrespect for a student and or a parent or guardian, I would really like that to be brought to my attention, so I can make sure that I look into that and we can correct that. That would not be, that's not acceptable, it's not tolerable, and if it's been brought to my attention, you have my commitment to ensure that we will rectify that.
Can I respond to that?
We're actually gonna, if it's very, very brief.
It's very brief.
Okay.
I just want to say that as far as special education services and supports that can be offered, personally, I have had a good experience. But I only believe I have a better experience is because I am knowledgeable and I'm not a shrinking violet. So thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. I appreciate you being here. Thank you. Oh, sorry. I need your name for the record.
Natalie Andrews. I have 2 boys with IEPs. I have another who is seeing a reading specialist, and I have been overwhelmed with the amazing quality and absolute kindness, respect, the high level of communication, the care, and the genuine love that my children have received. I feel for those who have not, and I am sure that with everything in life, you know, there are good and there are bad, and there are, you know, people that really succeed in what they endeavor to do, and there are those who don't. I am blessed with amazing teachers, amazing officers, amazing specialists that have, my kids love it. They love working with their specialists. They love the fact that they're getting the attention they need. They love that they get to go to a special reading group to help them so that they know what's going on. I mean, just thank you. And I must say, on the other side of that coin, I am overwhelmed with the generosity and kindness and respect that I'm given, my husband's given. It's just absolutely wonderful. But I do know other people may not fare as well. But there are many of us who do.
Thank you for sharing that comment. We're actually, yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah. Thank you all for sharing your perspective, and thank you again to Terry Alcenter for sharing that CPAC update. Moving to the next item on our agenda is the presentation on community partnerships. Dr. Dorr.
This time I'd like to introduce Carmela, my SD. Did you want to actually do the introduction, Dr. Tiger? Okay. I didn't want to take that away.
No, we're excited to welcome Carmela Mayeski as our learning partnership specialist.
Just on Saturday, we celebrated the 3rd anniversary of the signing of our MOU for our partnership with our retail partners. We're growing in partners, so it's a wonderful opportunity to invite Carmel to be able to share a part of our story and our plans for the months ahead. I'm just gonna give you the navigational system, so I'll sit with you just in case it doesn't cooperate. And then, okay, I'll see you in talking. Awesome. So,
as one said, my name is Carmel Mansky. I have been in education since I think around 2005, although to be honest with you, after so many years, sometimes it sort of fades into just a while. Also, I spent my last 3 years teaching at Lawrence, and then I had this opportunity and jumped into it. So. Space or... All right, so basically, I'm going to give you guys a sort of an update on mutual partnership, where we are right now. Some things that we've done so far this year, and then some things that we hope to be doing in the near future with the kids. So, like I said, I spent the last 3 years working at Lawrence. These are all pictures of my kids. I have gotten in trouble with my daughter for referring to my students as my kids. She's like, "Oh, I'm your kid." But I always call my students my kids. They're just my kids. But these are all pictures that I have taken from experiences that I've done with my kids. And my whole thing going into teaching was, I want to be the teacher that does stuff. I want to be the teacher that does things to help kids learn. And so even when we had COVID, and the one at the bottom middle is during COVID, even during COVID, I tried really hard to bring in materials and bring them on carts so the kids were doing something, because I've learned over time through experience that kids really enjoy that and they learn really well when they're doing stuff. So now I get to work in a position where all I do is plan stuff that kids can do to help their learning. So it's honestly, it's a lot of fun. So as far as what we've accomplished so far this year, we've done some activities and we have a whole lot more planned for the spring. It's going to be a very busy spring for your students. So the first thing I planned, or that I helped plan with Henry, was the National Open Cultural Celebration, which, to be completely honest with you, is always one of my favorites. I really like the one that we do at Moran Hall because it's done outside, and a lot of community members will hear what's going on, and they'll come over and they'll bring the kids over and they're looking through the fence and they're watching it. And it's great because at the end, all the kids get involved, and I feel like it's a really good unifying activity for the kids. And I wish when I had gone through Falmouth schools that we had had things like this, because to be honest with you, the first time I ever saw a powwow type activity was when I was teaching at Lawrence, and we actually went to a celebration and it was really amazing. So I'm glad that we can bring that to our kids. One of the other activities that I was privy to this year is called BioBlitz, which is grade 2. Basically, we take kids out and they look at nature. They look for different habitats. They look for different animals. What are the things that the animals are looking for in those habitats? This one, I believe these are pictures from Miss Torch's class. However, I went out with Miss Castleberry's class. We had a really great time. The kids really enjoy it. They have a nice long walk. We're outside, fresh air. And again, they're having fun, they're learning. So we also have a great relationship with Webner, which is the Coit Bay National Estuarine Research Reserve. I almost had the whole thing. It trips me up every time. So we actually have our kids go to Webner and they talk about erosion. So the kids go out on a walk, they get to see examples of erosion caused by wind and water, which is in line with the standards. They get to do hands-on activities about that. And actually the girls are holding up magnets because they put the magnets in the sand and found out that there's actually iron or magnetic particles in the sand. So, and this is actually pictures from this year as well. Microbial communities, that is a new pilot program that we're running this year, which has been an absolute blast. We've been working with some people from MBL, we've been working from people from a lot of different scientific communities. And so kids went out to Shivert's Pond, they looked for organisms, they took samples, They came back to the classroom. We built Winogradsky columns, which is for looking at different types of bacteria. The kids made and looked through their own microscopes, which was absolutely astounding. And the two little pictures that you see there on the screen were actually baby squid that were brought from MBL. And I believe the second one is an insect wing. So they have just been having so much fun, and we're not even done yet. We're still planning on getting to the standards by doing a few more activities, but just a lot of fun. These kids ask great questions. That was grade 4. Then, of course, we've had 2 trips so far this year to Pennakees Island for grade 6. Basically, when they go to the island, we want them to be inquisitive. We want them to ask questions. We want them to have fun. We want them to learn about an island community, an island ecosystem, the problems that are facing island ecosystems with climate change and rising sea levels. And again, I mean, you can't argue with the joy on their faces. They do take a boat over. I think it's around 24 kids at a time that can go over to the island, and they explore and they turn over rocks and all those great things that kids should be doing. So it's a great opportunity for our kids. Then again, Webner, grade 6 is they also go to Webner. They do something a little bit differently. They study the watershed and they talk about how density affects the pollution that goes through the watershed. They also, I believe, have Kitty Hendricks from the Wampanoag tribe come up and talk. She comes up and talks to them at the WECU that they have on their property about Native American knowledge, Native American science, which is something that's becoming more common now, which is really fantastic opportunity for our kids. And they talk about basically pollution, watershed, and things like that. This was a new thing this year, a new thing for me. This was my first ever field trip. This was during Mass STEM Week. We thankfully to the Cape Cod Regional STEM Network, we had a donation to pay for our bus fare. So I was able to take 27th and 8th graders to McLean Laboratories, where they learned that there's an awful lot of different types of science and engineering going on right in Falmouth. So if that's the kind of thing that you're interested in, that is definitely a field that you could go into. It's really cool. That pool right there goes down, I think, 50 some odd feet, and it looks like something out of a nightmare when they don't have the light on. It's just a dark hole. The kids were absolutely entranced with it, so it was a lot of fun. They learned about the research that McLean does. They make instruments for underwater sampling and experimentation. So now pond study is something that I personally did when I was at Lawrence for grade 8. It's something that's been going on for over 25 years. And we have a lot of data. We have a lot of data. As a matter of fact, 2 of my students last year did a science fair project where they analyzed all the data over 25 years. And big surprise, they found an upward trend in temperature, which nobody was surprised, but it was really cool for them to be able to see that. So basically we take the kids out, we test water, they go around looking for places where there could be pollution, and they learn a whole lot about ecosystems, and specifically the ecosystems of a pond that's sort of in a centralized area with a lot of residential areas around it. Our mini boats is a project that is still in process. We're at the point where the boats, we were donated 3 boats. They have been refurbished, almost completely rebuilt by a high school team run by Cheryl Milliken. And so basically what they're trying to do is they're trying to get the boats into the water, into Cape Cod Bay, so that we can track where the boats go. Because at this time of year, you guys have probably heard about turtle strandings and cold stun turtles. They get stuck in Cape Cod Bay because, I mean, obviously the shape gives away why they're getting caught there. But if we release these and the wind takes them, we can maybe pinpoint some places where we would be likely to find cold stun turtles that happen to wash ashore. So it's pretty interesting. They also get temperature readings, they can do weather readings. It's an amazing program. Still in the works. We're having some technological errors, but we're really, really close. So very soon. And then let's talk about what we're going to do for the future coming up. So we have a lot of fun activities and learning activities for the spring. We start all the way with kindergarten, which is Ocean Day, which thanks to our partners at NOAA, they do a great job. They bring in a bunch of fish that they catch on their surveys. Kids get to experiment and see types of fish that they probably never even knew existed. We have some crafting programs. That is, I've been told, is a preserved turtle that they have on, and they bring that in for the kids to look at. And it's really just sort of getting the kids an introduction to basically what's around us, which is the ocean. It's a lot of fun. And let me tell you, the number of pictures I looked with kids going like this with fish was just, honestly, it was a lot of fun. Day at Shivrix Pond, we have all of the grade 1 students from the entire district go to Shivrix. They work with 300 Committee and Commerce Choice. They do a mindfulness walk on the outside, which is really nice because I think you should start mindfulness very young because it helps as you get older. And they do a read through about a book that talks about food chains. They talk to an environmental freshwater ecologist that talks about the food webs and all the animals around and ecosystems. So it's a lot of fun. We also have the Cape Cod Cape Verde Museum and Cultural Center. They welcome students into their museum, which happens to be right next door to East Falmouth, which is great for them because they just walk over. And they talk about the the contributions, that's the word I'm looking for, the contributions of their community to Falmouth. A lot of the farming things that used to be around here were started by Cape Verde families. And the great thing about that is it's easy to be afraid of or not like something that you don't understand. So the more opportunities that we have to let our kids get exposed to other cultures that might be different from their own, I feel like deepens their understanding of people, that we're all people. All right, so Earth Day, not necessarily on Earth Day, but around Earth Day, we have stations that are run by partners. I believe there was 12 to 15 stations. The students rotate through the stations. They learn all kinds of things about stewardship and ecology, renewable and non-renewable resources, why pollution is bad, why it's so bad for our particular environment, importance of honeybees, and then also they learn about choices that they make in their diet and how that can affect the environment. We have our Woods Hole trip for grade 3. I know, I love this one. That picture of the little girl with the horseshoe goat is my absolute favorite. But this is actually, these pictures are taken inside of the MRC, which is the Marine Resource Center at MBL. And so, you know, grade 3, they're kind of still new to the district and they haven't really maybe learned about what Woods Hole is. They might know, oh, there's an aquarium down there, but there's so much more going down there. So basically we bring the kids down, we bring them to Hui, we bring them to MBL, we bring them to the aquarium, thankfully, because it's open again, thank you. And basically show them some of the really cool science being done down there. So it's sort of an introductory trip. Now, this is cast 2 of the sequel. This is my really bad, lame sense of humor. I don't have a name for it yet. It is modeled after the CAST program, which is cross-age science teaching, which maybe some of your kids were involved with. It's when I think it's 8th graders go back and they teach 3rd graders STEM lessons. So this is similar, but it's high school level students. They're going back and teaching 3rd grade students about oysters and their importance to the environment and filtration. So that's why I called it CAST to the sequel, because as of right now, we don't quite have a name for it. But it's modeled after CAST, but it'll be run by us. So the green bus tour for grade 4, basically we take the buses out. They don't get painted green, much to my disappointment. They're still orange. They go out and they go to different green places, and the trips are different. Sometimes they go to the same location, sometimes they go to new locations, but basically the point is to bring the kids to green locations in Falmouth, show them how different things, like the ice rink, I believe they went to one year, and they were talking about all the things that they put in to make it more environmentally sound. So basically showing the kids different places around town that are trying to make a difference.
And they go with their investigative journals and they have their hypotheses and their questions first. They're very diligent about their little journals.
Yeah, they do definitely dig the journals and the passports, which actually this involves the passport. So I literally just, registration starts tomorrow if we have kids in elementary schools, just a heads up. For the 2 programs that we have run through Falmouth Community School, one is a STEAM type program where we have 4 of our partners come in. They do STEAM activities with the kids to sort of introduce them to what scientists do and how we ask questions and basically how we come up with solutions. We also have a music, movement, and need cultural program as well, which I'm excited about because we have 2 new partners in that. We actually have some people from the Woods Hole community that are coming in and they're going to do Hispanic heritage. They're actually going to talk about music and salsa and all the culture that has to go with that. And then we also have a new music partner as well, who's going to be doing some singing about the environment and some dancing and movement with the kids. So I think it's going to be a really great program. As we've done in the past, we have the Coonamessett River Greenway for grade 5. This year, I hear that we're going to be focusing on marine invertebrates. So they're gonna be sampling and looking at them to see what they can find, which is always a lot of fun. And then what that means as far as the health of the community. So if you find this certain organism, what does that tell you about the health of the community? Day in the Village is something that we haven't quite gotten to its full potential, but we're gonna do it this year, I hope. So Day in the Village, where all grade 7 students come down, they talk about this particular fish we're talking about is haddock. And they talk about how it gets from the ocean to the plate, and then basically how we can do that and maintain it sustainably, which is extremely important for, first of all, where we are in the world, but also in general. So how we can do that with maintaining the numbers. We are working on getting kids to Cutty Hunt this year. Again, it's similar in programming to Pennikies, but they're going to be practicing fishing and crabbing. They're going to talk about ways that they could brainstorm solutions to ocean level rise as far as an island community is concerned. They make an environmental comic, and they also work on a field guide talking about the flora and the fauna of the island. And then I believe this is the last one. This is my personal favorite. I used to work for Plymouth, and I went on a field trip to the Mammoth Bird Sanctuary. And when I left that, I said, when I get a chance to plan field trips, this will be my first field trip. And I stuck to that because I want our kids to experience what I experienced on that field trip. And it's amazing. They do songbird science. They do science using songbirds. So they basically catch birds. They have nets up during a certain time of the year. They catch them, they measure them, they weigh them, they check their health, and then they release them. And this has given them years and years and years of data about population size, climate change, when they come, how healthy they are, and so much that the kids are going to learn about biodiversity and populations. So it's going to be amazing. And then as well as that, they have a stewardship walk where the kids will be exploring biodiversity in a set area, how many different animals and plants there are available. So I think it's going to be pretty interesting. And at minimum, I mean, you get to deal with birds, and it's going to be great. So and I think they're going to learn an awful lot. So I'm really excited, cautiously excited about that.
And I think one of the great opportunities was that Carmela had joined us at one of our spring forums, and we were talking about all the opportunities we had from kindergarten to grade 8 that were really clearly articulated and anchored in our curriculum. And then we were looking at grade-wide opportunities at the high school, because so many pieces were connected to specific courses and curriculum. And so introducing the birding opportunity allows us to bring a cross-grade level experience when we finalize the details to all of grade 9 and anchor it in our biology curriculum. But it also is a catalyst to some of our conversations about environmental. So when we had the opportunity to sit down and look at this retrospectively, when we started off with 3 strands and a bunch of ideas that everyone was brainstorming, and our goals, which are over here on the side of the room, then we started building around world-class science opportunities and really thinking about this. I think we were amazed to look backwards and see how many opportunities were there that were both building off of historical opportunities in Falmouth, but then the BioBlitz, the management trip, there's a number of them that were created by a teacher who came to a coffee hour with partners and said, I have this idea, and they got matched up, and then it became a grade-wide experience. So super excited. We have made every grade K-8. We're working on grade 9, and then finding those deeper opportunities at the advanced courses.
Great, and I just want to say your last slide says thank you, but I want to thank you
wow,
your excitement, the opportunities that you're giving to our students. I looked at half of these, I have stars of things I want to do, so thank you. I mean, I can feel it, like the kids must benefit so much from being with you, so thank you for that.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah. Any other questions or comments from school?
Wonderful.
Yeah, it's wonderful. Thank you. You have a comment? Yes. Could you, your name for the record again?
I'm Sheena Mapp, and I just want to say it's absolutely amazing. My kid was in one of the pictures, and so he talks about how they're doing all these things in science and how they're the only ones doing it in the district. And what you guys may not see is every single one of those things is tied to standards through and through the grade levels. And so, like, just thank you, because my kids have never been so excited to go to school.
Yeah, Thank you for that.
Thank you for that.
Great, thank you, Carmela.
Thank you.
Okay, next, presentation of FY24 budget, Dr. Dorr.
So, I know my presentation may not seem like it's gonna be as exciting as it is, but let's keep in mind that as we look at the budget, everything Carmela just shared, all the pictures of our students. That's why we create a budget, so that we can continue to do the things that are exciting for our students and keep them engaged in school as well. So I'd also like to say that Alex, our Ericu, our Director of Finance and Operations, sorry he could not be here today. He has taken ill. Tis the season. So definitely be with us in January, I hope, so that he can help present this together. So I always start out with the budget process, just as a quick reminder. We begin with the district framework for student success. We identify student needs, assess staffing needs, align the budget with our priorities, changes affecting the budget. We have to look at that as we're projecting, and then playing with the multi-year plan. So I just want to mention that, some of our student needs that I've said several times over the last several months, last year, reading supports, math support, English language development support, counseling supports, special education services, and our low class sizes have been a priority in our budget because the needs have indicated that. And just the bullet that's changes affecting the budget. I had last meeting came to you with the potential 14% increase for the out of district tuition costs. And so that's just an example of something that we may have to deal with. The priorities are always access and equity, so that we make sure that every single student is successful. We do have to be fiscally responsible in our decision making. Again, considering this, the student needs, class sizes, student choice. I talk a lot about student choice. Making sure that students have something that helps them connect to other students, to school. We just had a family forum. One parent said that at the high school, her student just can't speak enough about the robotics, and that's that connection that keeps the her child in school. And another parent mentioned the theater program. And it's just, I want us to keep in mind that we do these things because students do have choice, and they speak about what is important to them and how they're developing, and their interests are addressed. And so that's so important as we think about the opportunities that we offer our students. Maintaining additional positions to address the increased social, emotional, and academic needs. As I just mentioned, we have been fortunate to be able to use our ESSER dollars to address the needs of our students with the additional support staff. And that's been extremely important and valuable for our district. Health and safety concerns are always at the forefront. This year, we added the school safety monitors. So we are continuing to address that. And then just our community partners. And we just heard from Carmela about, how strong our partnerships continue to be. So very specifically in the priorities, I want to maintain the counselors, the reading specialists, our ELD teachers, and our safety monitors that we have added over the past 2 years. New positions. We talked about in our budget subcommittee and in our new advisory committee, our learning access about a family liaison position. And with that, and I will talk more in the future about this too, but we also talked further about a welcoming center where we would have a family liaison. We'd also have a Portuguese interpreter that we could welcome all families. And so their first touch point coming into the district would be someone that would help with the language, if there is a language barrier, but just helping to register and have all families connected. The Career Technical Education Department Head, we talked about expanding our CTE programs. And we are at the point, Dr. Tellier presented last June about kind of that breaking point of when we need a department head with a number of programs. Again, it comes back to student choice. Many of the programs and pathways kids connect with, they're of interest, and it really helps kids connect with school as well. So we will continue to talk about that. The digital literacy, computer science, library department head. We have not had a department head, so to speak, with this focus, but we, you'll remember Cindy Tugas was in the director position. I am suggesting that this position become a department head in the Unit B contract. We have computer science standards from kindergarten through 12th grade that we really need to look at, make sure that we have a articulation across the grades and to be able to go deep with the standards within grades. We have the digital literacy that also needs to be addressed at every grade level. We are doing that. Could we do more? Could we look at that? I think, obviously, yes. And then since we we did not replace the director over the library teachers very much would like a leader in their position to help kind of guide them, set the professional development. And so this all-encompassing position would be very valuable to our district. I'm going to speak a little bit more about this in a little bit. And then I have for several years on the priority list is looking for an elementary Portuguese language teacher, and it's still on the list, and hoping that we can make that happen for FY 24. Yeah. then COVID happened. We had a little thing with COVID. So yes,
Just a quick question related to
yeah.
the last slide. Yeah, I'm just wondering where the director of policy and legal affairs fits here. Is that a new position, or would that be maintaining
These
the
are-
position?
Will be maintained, yes.
Okay, so we could.
Yes, we could, yes, we could add that.
Okay,
Yes.
make sure it's in.
Thank you. So just enrollment, we mention this each time, our enrollment is going down slightly each year. And we're just, we still need to address all of our students, and all the choices and the needs of our students need to be addressed. This is by grade. You will notice that our kindergarten this year is at 209. Last year, our kindergarten was at 250. You can see the first grade kind of bubble when you look across the grades. We had a bubble in this year is in grade 5 and in grade 8. So those are kind of the big years that we've had, starting out with the kindergarten moving through. But you can also see the other years as they're moving through the typical enrollment. I just added this. Dr. Santa shared this with us before, and I wanted to add this in again, just so we have an idea as we're looking at the budget about our employees that we currently have on staff this year. And this is a new slide that I added. We say it often, but I wanted to do the data here to show. We often say that we have very experienced teachers and very educated teachers. And I just, as you can see this, the majority of our teachers are at that year 11 plus, and our teachers have their masters and masters plus. That's the majority. So I think that's
Just to show why we need to
for
Yeah.
people, right?
So our, we've mentioned this before as well, this is the areas of need. We certainly, and I appreciate the town passing the Student Opportunity Act, which is Chapter $70, which was directly to impact our economically disadvantaged. You can see the over the since FY10, that was at 20.9%. We are now at 43.6% this year. We have increased over the past 4 years, 391 students that qualify for the economic disadvantaged group. Of the, I mentioned the kindergarten last year, the 250 kindergarten students, which is one of our largest groups. 129 of those students were considered high needs, so over 50% of the new students coming in. Our multilingual learners from FY 10 to now, we've grown from 1.2 to 5.8. We have added 52 ELD students over the last 4 years. We've had quite a growth in the percentages. I will say, if you just think in FY13, we had 3 teachers, and we are now at 8 teachers. Our students with disabilities, again, the growth from FY10 to now, the percentage has been pretty steady at 17, 18, 19% over the years, but then it has taken an upswing in the last couple of years. So now to the budget overview. This is FY23. You'll notice that 94% of our budget is actually local. That it does include the Chapter 70 and the most recent $1,474,000 of the SOA money that was just granted us. 3% are in grants, 1% is circuit breaker, and 2% is school choice. How we're using our funds this year, 82% of the funds are budgeted for salaries, 1% for instructional supplies, 3% goes to utilities. Out of district is 4%, transportation is 4% for the budget, and we have 6% in other expenses. So what are the realities? We are very fortunate that we can count on increases from the town. We can, our operating budget provides a maintenance of services with our student population, our student enrollment. The needs of students continue to grow. We can count on that. Our Chapter 70 funding is increased to address the student needs. And going to our student needs, we have 2 new schools that qualify for Title I services. Dr. Taylor will be submitting the application. Unfortunately, we do not get to see those funds until FY25, pending approval. But we currently have 3 Title I schools. That will mean 5 out of our 7 schools will qualify for Title I. School choice revenue has been very critical to the education of our students, both in the investment of technology and new curriculum. The ESSER grant is ready to end. That's a reality. As we talked about the new Chapter $70, it has come at the right time, so we are not talking about a financial cliff, because the people that we've added to the ESSER grant to actually help address the needs will be able to be moved to the Chapter 70. The local budget decisions obviously are critical to our financial stability. This district has been stable for as long back as anyone can remember, so we're very fortunate to be here in this town that supports the schools. enrollment trends, require annual staffing decisions. I will share with you that when we talk about class sizes have been important to people, and I think through the COVID extremely important. We are able to, in the budget for next year, to continue to be able to have staff sizes at the elementary side, elementary level, average size of 16 per classroom, and average of 19 at Lawrence Pond. Of course, Lawrence and the high school, it's scheduling and choices, so they vary from class to class on the sizes there, but still very supportive of low class size. Additional payroll expenses have increased. Obviously, we're still in negotiations with all the units and FEA for our FY23 to FY25 contract. The collective bargaining of all of our collective bargaining in the district encompasses our largest budget item. And as I already shared, most of our staff are the top staff with few retirements or resignations. People like to stay, so which is a great thing. We get to keep the experience and knowledge here in the district. The out of district tuitions, as we're not sure yet. They fluctuate every year, but this year we are keeping an eye on whether that 14% is going to continue to be the plan. Our entitlement grants are flat, so even if in the Title I and FY25 we will be able to be granted additional funds, we're not really sure how that'll work when the grants themselves are not keeping up with the cost of what we're the staff that we're allocating to the grants. Our non-salary costs are remaining stable. I just heard from the town, our utility costs have not increased, nor look like they will increase. So that's a good thing. So when the time comes after we continue to do many presentations around the schools, and we come back and we further discuss here, the committee will be asked to approve a request to the town of $56,175,788 for our FY24 budget.
That's a lot, and you went through it fairly quickly, so thank you. Any questions? Bill?
Yeah, for the question.
Sure.
I see on the presentation has school choice, and total is $1,034,040. On the next slide over, we've got the out of district placements, a little over 2 million. Do we know what percentage of those are school choice?
Just give me a second to get there.
Yeah, page 9.
Okay,
So
so
so it's the source of funds and use of local funds, because I know your slides are.
yeah, my slides are different. Okay, so the sources, and your question is the percentage of?
Yeah, like the out of district placements, how many of those are school choice and how many of those are other?
Use of funds, the next slide, the use of funds to local funds.
Yeah, I'm sorry, okay, so I don't, in the out of district, could you explain, you did a great job the other day with the finance committee. I believe it's the same question about the out of district and school choice. So if it is a school choice, that's school choicing here, and then they need to be out of district. Is that the question?
Well,
how
I mean, there are some people from, let's say, Mashpee who choose to come to Falmouth.
Right.
And there's funds that have to be.
Right, so, okay.
So I'm
so
sure,
not-
I know there are also students that are in Falmouth that are choosing to go to, let's say,
Oh,
Mashpee.
I'm sorry. I thought when I say out of district, I think about our out of district placements for our students with disabilities.
That's what I was.
Yeah, okay. All right, so that
Are
was
those put in
confused.
the
I got it.
same category?
No,
Okay,
they're not. They are separate.
So do we have a number on this use of local funds? Do we have a number that is going out?
So I
For
can
students
answer that.
choosing.
Yes, I can answer that. Thank you, to me, I understand. So we do not, we actually, as a district, do not have the budget for that. Our town has been very generous to pay that. So the school choice of the students that come into Falmouth, we get the money directly.
Mhm.
But if our Falmouth students go out in choice to another district like Mashpee or Sandwich, the town actually pays that tuition.
So do we have a number of what the town pays out for that?
It's the same formula for everyone. I actually don't, I mean, whether they come in or go out, it's the same, and I'm not sure I actually know that.
I thought it was around 5,000 for
It's
students.
Yeah, I will have to get back to you on that. I don't want to misquote on this.
I mean, I guess either way, it affects the taxpayers one way or another, so I think it would be great to have that number, how it compares to what is coming in versus what is going out.
Yeah. But I think your other question was very interesting, the one because I think that's an important thing for people to know also around out of district placement, that those are Falmouth students, that if they were
A choice.
school choice, it would be their town paying for the out of district placement. Correct?
This
Yeah.
refers to kids that need special services.
Right.
They're not going to another high school, right?
Yeah, I just didn't see
So-
school
yeah.
choice in here as far as money going out, so I was assuming that those would be lumped in the same
Yeah.
pie.
For out-of-district placements, all of our students that are out-of-district placements, if they're a resident of Falmouth, then Falmouth, town public schools pays for that tuition. If it's a school choice situation, then the community in which they live. And if there's a student that's in an out-of-district placement and one parent resides in one town and another parent resides in a different town, then we cost share.
Could we get that number that the town pays out? Oh, awesome. Thank you.
Both good questions. Both of them.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? Jennifer? Fellow school team members at home, seeing that, okay, well, thank you very much. I appreciate it. Very helpful. Very helpful, I agree. Next on our agenda, I'm going to turn it back over to Dr. Dorr. First read of job descriptions. We have three in our packet.
Yes.
Turn over to you.
Thank you. So the first position, I already spoke a little bit about, so I'm not sure how much more I want to speak. You know that we've had the posting for the Lawrence Library position. It is a part-time .48 position. And we have not had a lot of luck being able to have someone. We do have someone in the library. The library is open. Teachers can take their students in the library and whatever, whether it's, a research for whatever subject, they certainly use the library and the teachers are providing the instruction. We also have someone in the library that students can check out books at any time. So the library is open. What we don't have is a licensed librarian in the library. So, and the .48 was just what was determined as far as the actual instruction. The library itself, the rest of the time would be managed and books checked in and out. Because we haven't had success with that, I'm actually hoping that this position may help in the Unit B contract. The department heads can teach 2 courses, and this would help at Lawrence. So I would like the department head to be assigned to Lawrence School. They would teach the 2 courses, but they would be this department head for K through 12. And then, like I said, also really looking into those standards of the computer science and the digital literacy. So, I'm asking, this is the first read. I'd like to come back in January, and I am asking the school committee to approve.
So before we proceed with that, could you briefly high-level data of how this position is different from the one that existed previously in terms of expectations of job description, oversight, what that looks like?
Dr. Turner, you want to step in on it?
Sure. In the former role as at the director level, it also included relationship with IT, and there was, I think, a broader decision-making level, whereas this is looking more specifically at the teaching, learning, the curriculum design, and really narrowing the scope to both the library and then certainly looking at the DLCS, especially because at this time, the standards are going through significant revision and they're looking at introducing high school courses that we weren't looking at before, where the high school computer science courses can be used interchangeably, designed according to new standards with some of the math requirements. We really want to understand that and provide the correct guidance with that. And then also there's a growing interrelationship between how our library teachers at elementary are teaching both library and DLCS. And then as we begin to build those programs vertically, looking at the complement when those roles start to separate, so that's supervision piece.
Sure, so just to clarify, you said broader level of decision-making, that.
As a member of central.
Okay, so this person would have.
Would be a department head, so it'd be more within that curriculum, so the department.
So this new incarnation lacks that decision-making piece that the other
At the
positions
central office level.
have.
And just the director would not be teaching
When was the
the
last
two
time,
courses that are allowed in the university. Yeah.
when was the last time we had a director?
Because
Spring 21. Who's when? Cindy, every
2 years?
Yeah.
So I have two questions. I think, COVID has put everything in this weird space, right, of time. So my first question is, what happened to that money that we had for a central office position? Just kind of understanding that we had this position and then the position went away.
well, I mean. Yeah, I guess, the short answer is that, it didn't go away. It was obviously allocated to, could have been teachers or could have been, so we can't say that this salary directly went here, but it went into whatever may have been needed or determined at the time, so it could have.
Okay,
Right,
I'm
yeah.
just, because we're approving, this would be in our budget, so I'm just kind of, just for for people to understand that we had this position before, it was then absorbed into many different areas, or did it go specifically to one position?
No, this is not how the budget is actually created. So, I mean, you have money, right? And you're allocating to, you're looking at your needs, right? So it's not that we took that position and say, oh, we need this here, so we're gonna shift that, right? But it could be needs, we may have needed an additional reading specialist at the time, or a different, or it could be across,
So that
positions, could have been
position
another
just
classroom
wasn't,
position.
that position wasn't budgeted for the next year.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so it just was
It was
taken from
absorbed
the-
into the budget to address other needs.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that was a year that I was off the school committee, so I'm just trying to understand a little bit about
specifically
what happened with that position. And then my second question is, who is the supervisor for this position? You, okay. Thank you.
Thanks. Any other questions related to this position? Next.
So I'd like to talk about the Director of Policy and Legal Affairs. So this is a position that I strongly recommend that we vote and keep. Just to talk a little bit about in-house legal. The question is like, what would we normally engage legal for, right? So grievances, student discipline, CRAs, special education, IEPs, and now we're doing all of that in-house, right? So here's an example of training. In the past, we have discipline training is something that's absolutely necessary for all administrators each year. And in the past, I may have asked and did ask the attorney to provide that training. And given the amount of time, it's not unusual, and I've checked with other districts, that a training may be like an hour-long training. And you would touch upon the different pieces of the law and our requirements. What we've been able to do this year, Mary has trained all of our admin, RAC and building teams. After carefully doing the research, putting a presentation together that covers all information and references the law, and it's in their hands, so it's easy to access. Prepared discipline letters, the templates, and has been available to consult immediately on cases. So that has been all in-house. And I think when you look at in-house, it's also the immediacy that could prevent claims later. Just around this discipline piece, I mean, Mary has spent upward to or more than 60 hours just on that piece. So I want to talk, it's not just kind of doing what the attorneys would do, but it's actually increasing the quality of what we're getting in our district. And it's actually improving our knowledge and skill sets to be able to do things better.
Could I give an example of that?
Sure.
On policy, sometimes we would have to have, oh, I don't know how to say this gracious, if a person from our other firm come in and we were not enlightened. Okay, so Mary enlightens us beyond belief over the person from the firm we had. So.
Terry, if I may, I feel like maybe to streamline what you were just saying, we would sometimes we would be making really good progress in policy, and then we would have a hiccup question, and then we'd have to wait. Sonia would take the question back to our prior legal firm. We'd, wait for the next policy committee meeting, then we could potentially circle back on it. By that time, did we lose momentum, what we were talking about? Did we take adequate notes to remember exactly what we were saying in the moment? Whereas when we have Mary in real time, she can cut out all of that and we're able to just move on in the moment, which policy is, it's a heavy lift at times and it's nice to move along swiftly.
Plus, we didn't have to pay the fee to that firm.
Right.
Right, okay.
Yes, all of that cost, every policy and our consultation. Another example, and thank you for the policy, because it was actually an example, but you guys could do it better. The special education audit that we just had, the tier focus monitoring, where the due process and written notice was brought up. Mary was able to handle all of that. So she prepared the training, she prepared the letters. She started internal audits that will continue monthly in all of our schools. So it's not just what we might have been able to have the capacity to do is to fix what the DESE actually found. But now we're able to, once we know that this is what's supposed to happen, we can be proactive across all of our schools. Right now, Mary has spent over 70 hours around that portion. And again, there's no outside attorney that would be able to come in and do the same. They just don't have the hours to do that. But I do think that we're improving our district and our practices because of that. Title IX, Mary is overseeing all of Title IX. So updating all of our procedures with the new law and making sure that we're all aware of our steps, plus looking at any cases, overseeing any cases. Around civil rights, she is writing our procedures because we didn't have procedures. So she's writing procedures and again, just answering all questions and addressing all cases. Again, I could go around the bullying law, the prevention plan she's writing, the preparing the presentations for staff, providing trainings. At this point, we're not even done with the plan and she's upward of 40 hours. The mandated trainings for our staff, taking a look and reviewing those and finding alternatives that are actually Massachusetts specific instead of very general will increase the level of knowledge of our staff and our teachers when they're the front of with all students. She's been providing ongoing guidance around 51As, IEP questions, discipline, ethics, new forms, and then guiding us around the new forms. And one particular issue that's come up this year is the student pronouns and names and providing guidance. She is leading us in the JEWEL lawsuit. As I just shared with you, the first settlement has been made, and she will begin working closely around all that paperwork. She's staying current on all new law, regulations, and guidance. And then I can't quantify all of that, but what I can say is that over the last 5 years, we paid Stone & Chandler between $83,000 and $121,000 a year. To date, we have paid our new attorneys $6,773.
Could you say those numbers again? Because people ask that very question every. How much, you know, how
Over the last 5 years, it's been anywhere from $83,000 to $121,000 for legal services. And to date, July 1 through today, we have paid $6,773 to our new.
Shall I go first?
I'm sorry.
No, you go first. Okay. So I just a point of clarification here. So this is coming to us as a new position, but it's already filled?
It was in a grant. She's being paid out of a grant, and I would like to move it to local budget.
Okay, okay. So, yeah, so I think there's a procedure thing that we just need to make sure we always get new positions first before that. So I think for me, like this totally makes sense to have someone in-house who understands our school system and can support. But it is like, if we're paying a salary and then we just hired new attorneys, I'm just a little confused as to this piece. It seems like we have double support now. And I understand that we're spending less money on our attorneys so far with the 6,000, but we are investing in a salary. So when I kind of add those numbers up, and I agree that having someone in-house is better who knows our system, but I guess I'm a little turned around because of the process of this. I didn't really know that we had this position and we're voting on it potentially on this job posting for the future, so.
Okay, yeah, and so my comment sort of piggybacks on your ideas in that any comment I make, I've worked with Mary in negotiations, she has saved the day on more than one occasion, so it is different to be looking at positions that are already filled. And so if you could sort of elaborate on the context for that, because it is a little, it feels a little bit backwards because these are positions, I know they were grant funded, but even so, we would need to approve the spending of that grant.
My understanding from our then Director of Finance and Operations is the grant funding positions did not need to be approved through the school committee. I did check that with previous superintendents here, and that followed suit with practice, as well as checking with other superintendents in other districts that grant funded positions did not confirm.
Okay, yeah, because MASC has,
They have recently come.
yes, very clear language on
Yes,
that.
they have recently come that they should. And so moving forward, we absolutely would follow that. It's just not been a practice here in this district or others.
Any other questions or comments before we move to the next position?
I do have a
Yeah,
question.
go
Okay,
for it.
so it's being paid for through a grant right now. I'm just looking at our budget. I don't see it in as a new position for our budget. How is that being incorporated into our main budget then?
The local budget.
Yeah.
So as we're doing the FY24 budget, the amount of dollars that are there is being accounted for within the budget as we do all the salaries. So our salaries we will continue to try to keep it the 82%. So with the additional funds that are coming into the district, so it's the additional funds of the 1.4 million, and then the 500,000 of the short-term rentals that the town is appropriating for us. It's additional this year that we've not had in the past.
So I think I would feel more comfortable with this being added as a new position for next year. Being shown that this is something that we're putting into the budget, to be transparent about that with the town as we're.
Bill, oh, sorry.
Yeah. I got a couple questions too. So are we talking about potentially posting this position or just creating it to be a full-time position and maintain Marion?
So if you approve the posting, it would be, I mean, the job description, then it would be posted. And our current person could apply for it.
Okay.
Or anybody else.
Okay, that was one of my questions too. And then I guess another question, you gave the figures over 5 years, we spent anywhere between 83,000 and 121,000 a year on attorney's fees. This position is showing 132 to 142,000 dollars a year, which is a difference, and based on the range that you gave for those 5 years, anywhere from 11,000 to 59,000 dollars more than we spent on attorney's fees in the past. I guess that's because there would be additional duties brought on, or
Well,
than what we were paying those attorneys for.
yes, and that's what I was trying to explain, that you know, if we have an attorney come in, they're going to do an hour presentation on student disciplines.
Right.
What we're getting with the in-house is that, you know, we've had, you know, I'm not sure which one I quoted on that was the, you know, 60 hours that's spent at the building level with the administrative team, with staff, with the trainings for us, making sure that we're really following everything that we need to follow. So it's a difference in the in what they're going to. We
Right.
couldn't pay an attorney 60 hours to come in
Right.
and do that.
We were paying 83,000 to 121,000 dollars a year for essentially a contract or part-time position, whereas you're looking at 132, 142 for a full.
Yes. I want to make sure I
It's
follow.
like our legal counsel up there.
Yes.
Thank you.
The next position is school monitors.
We have the school monitors that we added in through the ESSER grant this year, and so far, all the feedback I've been getting is great. I'm going to continue to get feedback as we go around and do the budget presentation. We've done our first budget presentation last week at East. They're unanimously from teachers, from food service workers, the parents, everyone overwhelmingly at that school said that we really need the school monitors, and they appreciate them being there. During staff sessions, also are getting good feedback. There are some that's, you know, there are some that says, do we need them? And then we have the others in the room that's saying absolutely, they feel comfortable with their, you know, knowing that there's somebody that's always walking the school building and walking the grounds to make them feel safe. At this point, I'm bringing this forward as a recommendation that we consider moving the safety monitors to the local budget as well. But I will continue as we have more presentations and getting feedback, and I certainly in our next meeting in January will continue to share information with you.
Yeah, so I have a point of just clarity around this. So this position has already been posted.
It has been posted and we hired.
Okay, but we're doing a first read to approve it.
To approve the job, the job description. You can change it as we move forward and as they go into the local budget.
So we're approving it not for the 2022-2023 year, but for the 2023-2024. So we'll want to change that. Okay.
Has anything in this changed since?
No, this
it
is
was posted?
exactly the way it was posted.
Any other questions or comments of the school monitor position, job description? Not position, job description. Seeing that again, this is the first read, so please read through. Would you like any feedback on that?
It would be great if you would email me feedback, or if you want to talk, certainly just call, email.
Would you like a deadline? No. Great.
Appreciate an extension 137 to make the appointment.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so next is act on $1,000 donation from Refuel Agency for the insurance.
It's here somewhere. All right, so the Falmouth High School students led by Katie Lovehertz, the school adjustment counselor, participated in a poster contest through the Refuel Agency, a leading media and marketing agency. Enclosed in your packet is the poster contest flyer, as well as a photo of the students posing with the poster. The Falmouth High School students won the contest in the amount of $1,000. The prize money will be used for biofeedback instruments to be used in the bridge program. And I recommend that the school committee approve this donation.
Thank you. Is there a motion?
Sorry.
Anyone?
Thank you.
Okay, motion to approve the $1,000 donation from Refuel Agency. Is there a second? A second. Excellent. We'll do a roll. Any questions? No. Okay. Roll call vote. We'll begin with Mike Halen.
Halen, yes.
Andrea.
Andrea Thorold, yes.
Harry.
Karen Maderas, yes.
Leah Palmer, yes, thank you very much.
Melissa.
Thank you very much. Yes. Keith?
Phil Dorfner, yes.
Natalie Gilmore was also yes. And again, thank you. Next, act on violin donation. Dr. Dorr.
Yes, Mr. Hargraves has very generously donated 2 used violins that are in very good condition to the music department. The models of the violins are APOC MV016, and to purchase a new one would be approximately $900 each. I recommend that the school committee accept this donation. Our music department is very excited about getting 2 new strings for our strings program.
Excellent. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to.
Second. And any questions? Seeing none, we'll do a roll call again. Andrea.
Andrea Thorold, yes.
Mike.
Halen, yes.
Karen Maderas, yes.
Leah Palmer, yes.
Melissa Keith, yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Hargreaves.
Phil Dorfner, yes.
And Natalie Gilmore was also a yes. Yes, Leah.
So if people in our community wanted to donate instruments, how do they go about doing that? Because there are probably other instruments in our
And that
community.
would be wonderful. We did start the new strings program this year at Morse Pond. We have over 30 students that are interested, and we do not have enough instruments for the students, but so other donations directly to our fine arts department head, Steve Edwards, or can certainly contact Sonia or myself. Anyone that would like to donate, we would welcome the conversation. So.
That is great.
If we can put something out there.
Yeah, I like that. Jen, on our Facebook page. Okay, thank you very much. Next, superintendent update.
Yeah, so just briefly want to say that I have the elementary student advisory. As you know, I have 3 different levels this year. We just had a session. Henry joined us and we talked along with Dr. Tiger, which was always at the meetings, but we talked about belonging and what does that mean? And the students assessed us and I find this to be actually very positive. They want more, right? They want us to do more. And it's they've really enjoyed learning about cultures, the tribe presentations, the visits to the Cape Verdean Museum. and they want more. And I think that's very positive that's, so assessing us that we need to do more in that area, and I will take that one and we'll work on that. But they also believe that our district's doing well in making sure that every student feels included. And I think that's really important, and they want to be a part of it. That was the other piece that I got. We just really want to make sure that every so they're glad we have to focus on it. The second update is the Falmouth High School tour. We had I think I reported on the T-Ticket, Morse Pond and Lawrence tour the last meeting. We also had the Finance Committee and school committee members tour Falmouth High School. Students led the tour. They started out with the culinary program, prepared refreshments in the morning. The level 4 culinary students they were running the business. As we came in, the TLC students actually helped with that program, which is just a nice combination. We viewed and toured many different areas. They were really impressed with how knowledgeable our students were and just how they conducted themselves through the tour. So no matter what classes we saw, whether it was an art class, we got to see a full the TV production of the news. We were in the early childhood. We actually went in to see the English learning development course, and the students were, very happy to have us come in, and they were brave and shared. And it was just a really all nice morning, and we got just such a great feedback. So, and they commented again on all 4 schools that they were able to tour. And I think this is important because when our finance committee, our community understands what we're doing in our schools, then we have the support of our community. So the question came up about the Lawrence School tennis courts, and I just thought that might be important to let everybody know, and I appreciate the question. Are the tennis courts locked to our students? So we know that the tennis courts are locked to the community right now because of the litigation. So as long as we're using the courts for education purposes, we do have a key and we can unlock, and the kids can use the tennis courts, pickleball courts for education. We are not using them for recess or after school activities.
I just have a question. It's really a selfish question of a parent of a tennis player who loves it. What are we thinking on a timeline for this? Maybe Mary can answer that, or.
So it's actually not, so the tennis courts actually belong to the town. It's just that they've always allowed Lawrence School to have first option of being able to use them. So the litigation is actually with the town. It has nothing to do with the school district.
No, I know that. I'm just wondering if we, who are able to use them, have a sense of, like, what are we gonna tell the kids in the spring?
Well, for education purposes, if it's for.
But if it's an after-school activity, they've had the tennis club at Lawrence that prepares them for the tennis team at the high school. That's really.
I think that would be school. I think that would be, I would consider that to be education. It's a school-related activity.
Okay, even
opposed to just
an after-school activity.
Well, opposed to just being able to open them up and just after school letting them go out and play on it. It would be actually a structured activity.
Okay, thank you. That makes me.
And I'll stand by that.
Okay, great.
And open those up. What's the key? That's good. If need be. So, and then just another question came from a school committee member, and I just wanted to address. So being able to present information on retirements. So we can't actually give the actual names of the people that are retiring, but I can tell you that we have 15 employees that are retiring as of now. And after February 15th, when we go to post, then we can be able to make any type of announcement. I will make 2 specific announcements tonight. One, our principal at East Falmouth Elementary has decided to retire at the end of this year. And our second that I'll make an announcement that is now public is our athletic director has decided to retire at the end of this year as well. So those two, I'll announce that, and then we can get the actual specific positions now after February 15th.
And
Right
just
now
to
we have
clarify,
the-
because we're in December, end of the school year or in 2 weeks?
I'm sorry,
Oh.
the end of the school year.
Okay,
We
thank you.
think in that, in those
Thank you.
terms, yes. End of the school year for both of those.
Any questions for Lori? Okay, next, routine business, approved school committee minutes of November 14th, 2022. Is there a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Second, Terry will second. Any edits? Seeing none, roll call vote. Andrea,
Andrea Thorold, yes.
Mike,
Palin, yes.
Karen Medeas, yes.
Leah, I'm gonna abstain. Melissa Keith, yes.
and Natalie Kalopoulos, yes. Next, committee member reports. Terry.
I'll make the monthly VIPS liaison report. Last month, there was a track and field contest among our 4 elementary schools. And kids, you can imagine, go wild with the track and field events. There was also donuts and cider and even a touch-a-truck, which kids love that, so. It was a lot of organizing and hand in hand with the football game that was from the junior varsity players, everything was organized with VIPS as usual wonderfulness. Also in last month, 11 students in the college mentoring program toured UMass Amherst. They do a lot with getting kids into college and stuff. It's just amazing. And the December student of the month is Joseph Simpkins.
Excellent. Thank
So, yeah. Could I say something else?
Yes.
Okay, it's not a committee. It's just that I think I would like to give a shout out to 2 high school faculty teachers named Lauren Kenny and Corey Dubuque. They have taken upon themselves to boost morale. They're having gatherings, they're doing relationship building projects. And what they did, rather than have just the usual faculty holiday party, they invited retirees. So it was wonderful. It was a mixture of former high school teachers and current high school teachers. And poor Dr. Harris was trying to keep up with, the old and the new, but it was really nice. What a great idea. And how things were and how things are. And while we were talking the retirees, we mentioned of our recent colleagues since July. Could I say 3 people of our colleagues who passed away? And I hope we would always remember, we always will remember them. That would be Mike Helfand, Steve Anderson, and Fred Torn, all passed away and since July this year. So anyway.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Any other committee member reports? Just a heads up that at our next meeting on January 10th, we will have a brief update from the school committee on our school committee goals. So I'll also send out an email, but just so that you can be thinking about any updates that you want to share with the school committee at our next meeting. Request for information. Oh,
Yeah, my understanding is, I think you said in January, we'll have the numbers on the school of choice students enrollment or the ones that left. Is there a way to find out how many of those, when you're getting that data, how many of those were on IEPs prior to in the last year? Thank you. Just in light of our presentation. I think that would be helpful.
any other,
I was looking at all my responsibilities and I'm on the LPAC, but I haven't heard anything. And so I'm just making sure I haven't missed meetings. And just wondering who my contact would be, who would be letting me know if there's meetings.
Was be Christine.
Christina. Okay. So you'll let her know that. Okay.
One place on the website. I'm just gonna double check.
okay, any other requests for information? Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Eagerly, she makes the motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call vote, Andrea,
Andrea Thorold, yes.
Mike Halen, yes.
Mary Harris, yes. Gail Moran, yes.
Let's keep yes.
Bill Ortner, yes.
Natalie Kalambas, also a yes. Have a wonderful night and a wonderful holiday. See you all in the new year.
Oh, yeah.
No, this is how I-